All right, this is jpeg2RAW, show number 151, recorded on July 21st, 2015. Tonight's just Tim and I, and tonight we're going to go over one of our probably, at least one of my favorite topics, at least from a standpoint of how often I talk about it, and that is backing up your photos. I'm going to do a walkthrough of what I do, talk about what my setup is, and then give some ideas on some other people's solutions and what they do. Or some solutions for some other people if you don't have the same situation as me or Tim, because there are some limitations for some people based on your internet connection and some other factors. But I decided to do this, Tim, after watching someone else, another photographer. And let me right off the bat say this photographer in many ways is more talented than me. They obviously they have a very successful photography business. They know what they're doing. And they have a regular show that they do where they answer some questions. But it was one particular answer they gave that made me think, hey, we need to cover this again. And she wasn't necessarily, I just said she again.
You said.
He wasn't necessarily wrong.
Throw in a few he's and nobody will know.
Yeah. He or she was not necessarily wrong with what they said. It was just how they described it. So, and I'm going to go ahead and describe it right off the bat, and then we'll get to more of that later on in the show. And if you have questions out in chat, just put them out there. If you have questions afterwards, if you watch this afterwards, email Tim and I at podcast@jpeg2RAW, and I will try and answer them. Or go out in the Facebook group or into the forums. But what they were describing was how they were backing up. They had their original copy, they had their local backup, and then they were doing it offline. And a local backup was going to this thing called a server. And that's where she stumbled and he got a little confused and said, so a server, to explain what a server is, it's sort of like, how would I explain this? And then someone off camera helped. And she goes, no, it's not that. Maybe like a router.
Wow.
No, not like a router. It's like a modem with hard drives.
And like a modem with hard drives.
That's how they described a server, as a modem with hard drives. So let me just say, it's not a modem with hard drives. It's a modem, just in case you want to know. A modem is the device that's used to make an internet connection between you and your internet service provider. It could be a DSL modem. It could be a cable modem. It could be
a phone line.
A phone line modem.
God forbid.
There's a whole lot of things, but it's if you wanted to relate it to something, it's closer to a phone, because it's making that connection, than it is to anything else. A server sounds scary, sounds complicated, but really all it is a computer. It can be anything, any computer, laptop, a desktop. It could be Windows, Mac, it could be Linux. It doesn't have to be server software. You can have Windows 7. You can have a little Mac Mini. Anything like that that's a server. What it's basically doing is it's a central point. And I'm very simple here. I'm not going to go into all the depth of it, but it's a central point for doing things like serving files and other things that I don't want to get into. That's more complicated. But in the case of what we're talking about, is used to serve files. So I have a server that happens to be running.
Hence the word server.
Yeah, what happens to be running server software, and it is where our files for the family are backed up to. We have our files on our computers, but we have our files on that device also. And I'll get to why in a little bit. So I want to go over first let me see if I can pull this up, Tim. I got something set up, but I got to get it all ready. Crap. Not good at doing that. Where is this? Here we go.
Technology at its best.
Yeah. All right. So when you go to do a backup, and I see your screen is not captured right, but forget that. You have the original device, the original copy that comes off your off your memory card.
Right.
I'm gonna pull out an old compact flash 1 gig card. Original comes off of this. Yeah. The originals that come off of this, and you store to your local PC. That could be a hard drive inside your PC. It could be an external enclosure. It could be an external RAID enclosure. It could be anything like that. and hang out all the way to the back of the show. I'm going to go into what a RAID is, but that's like bonus points. So it could be anything that's attached to your local computer, that original copy. It could be somewhere else, but we're going to assume in this case it's attached to your local computer. All right. Your next thing is you want to have a local backup. That is a backup, a second copy of that file somewhere in your location. Preferably not in the same room as you.
Right. And definitely not in the same computer. That means separate from that.
If you remember, if you've watched all of these through, and Marion from, I think it was Romania, is watching all of them through. So he's going to come through this. Kathleen used to have a 2-drive, hard drive, a little enclosure thing. It wasn't actually an enclosure. Right. It was just a bay. And she had 2 drives stuck into it, attached to her computer, and she had one copy on one and one copy on the other. That's better than nothing, but only barely, because they're right there at the same spot. If her kid had hit that cord and sent the drives flinging across the room, or she spilt a drink into them, most likely whatever happens to one drive, unless there's a drive failure, whatever happens to one drive is going to happen to the other drive.
Right, you get a power surge, it goes across the whole thing.
Right. So that is barely better than the one copy. So best off, you want your second copy somewhere else in the house. And you also want, if you can, to have that connection between you and that second copy be hardwired instead of Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi will work, but it will be slower. You'll have more connection problems.
Correct.
It won't be as good. So if you could have a hardwire, that's best. That second computer we'll go into a little bit later with the thought of a server. So that's your local backup. Then your third thing you want is an off-site backup. Off-site backup, I personally use CrashPlan. Em, what do you use?
Google right now.
Google?
I'm terrible. Actually, I shouldn't say that. My off-site is I have a hard drive that I store at my father's house.
Okay.
So that's my off-site.
So you can have, there's all kind of ways to do off-site. I use CrashPlan, which means I upload them to the place, to CrashPlan. You could use Flickr, you could use Google, you could use Amazon, any place that gives you that unlimited storage. The best case, though, is using something like a CrashPlan, Carbonite, Backblaze, one of those things, that is automatic. It sees a change in the file, it uploads it offline. And I'm going to go over CrashPlan a little bit later. That's what you would like to have, is something that's automatic. A change in a file results in it uploading. The other solutions, Amazon, Google, Flickr, what else I'd say? You're manually taking photos off-site. All those require you to manually do it and require human intervention.
Well, I can say for the Google one, they get uploaded as soon as I upload them to my computer. Within a couple hours, they are uploaded directly to Google. The only difference between that is I don't think any of my corrections are done to the files. Only when I upload it. So I would have to check to see if I make updates to it, but I don't think it makes any changes to the updated photos. It's just putting it on there, and I'm not getting I didn't pay for the full resolution on it.
Okay. All right. So if you had made a change to that photo, that wouldn't go up there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look to see what happens.
Okay, that'd be good to know. So there are several solutions there. The offsite one is more complicated because it's offsite, and if you're doing what I'm doing, if you're uploading them through CrashPlan, what you do have to worry about there is your upload speed. I have a 5 meg upload speed, which is not great. I do have almost 8 terabyte of data uploaded to CrashPlan now, and it takes months and months to get all that uploaded. But if you don't have quite as much, it'll won't take as long. You just let it run 24/7. But the other problem a lot of people have is data caps. If you have a data cap, if you have a 250 gig per month, 500 gig per month data cap, something along those ways where you're capped in how much internet you can use, using something like CrashPlan, if you have a large amount to back up, is probably not going to work.
Right, I would agree with that.
So you have to find another solution. And I'll go over a few other solutions later on. But first, let me show you. First, cut back to us. There we are, Tim. I'm going to go to, I'm going to pull up Lightroom. All right. So I'm going to show you what I do whenever I bring in stuff through Lightroom. And Lightroom is what I use to take photos off of my computer. Okay. And I know you do. I know you do this
Same
too.
thing.
So I'm not going to bring in everything. I just want to bring in a few just to show an example. And when you go to import a photo, over here in the far right hand side is this thing called make a second copy to. It's asking you, where do you want to make the second copy to? See that, Tim?
Correct.
I know you probably do this. And then normally I choose a network location. In this case, for this sake, I'm going to choose a local place I created here on my computer. Lightroom Backups, I'm going to say select folder, and then I'm going to say import. And it's going to import those photos, and while it's importing those photos, and hopefully my computer, it went to 100% there, so we'll see what that does to us. Let's let this finish. That's not my computer. I need a second computer just to do this part. I should have turned off all the other stuff.
Now, how long do you keep that backup of those photos? That duplicate backup.
Okay. So I would tell you that I keep those backups forever. Now, that's something that's going to be your personal choice on what you want to do. So let's go and look at now the downloads, Lightroom backup, and here are those images that it backed up. It's a second copy.
Right.
It dates them, imported on Tuesday, July 21st, 2015. It puts them in that folder, and then it's a second copy of the raw images. For me, I look at that as the negatives that I'm storing away in a folder, and I'm not going to do anything with them. They do take up a lot of space over time. So if it's something that you're running low on space, you may want to think about not doing that.
Yeah, but storage is cheap now. Really, it's really gotten to the point. I think I just bought a 4 terabyte drive for like $109. And I don't think you're filling up a 4 terabyte drive anytime soon, even with all your backups. Of photos, that is.
The thing I like about doing that, Tim, right off the card, they come into two places. My computer, my local one that I'm talking to you guys on, and then a second computer that's actually in the room right next to me, but it's in a different room. So I already have a second copy. If somewhere in my editing process I totally mess up and I accidentally delete the photo thinking I just deleted it from the collection, but I actually delete it from my computer, that could happen. You're editing a whole batch of them. Let's say you make a virtual copies of them, of the whole group, and you go, crap, I didn't want to do that. You somehow delete them, but instead you delete everything for real, not just out of the collection. You still have this backup of if you do it this way. So immediately you have a second copy. Now, when I send this to my server, and I send it to my computer here, but normally I send it to the computer in my server. So let's now talk about what that server's doing and why I have it. And again, a server can be an old laptop. It can be, you can go get a Mac Mini. You can go get an old desktop computer. You probably want to have about 4 gig of RAM, depending on what you're doing. 8 would be better, but about 4 gig of RAM, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. What is happening with that server is I run CrashPlan on that. That's the only computer in the house that actually runs CrashPlan.
Okay.
And if you run it on your local PC, you can, but it can be resource intensive. And if you're editing or if you're doing other things, it can slow down your PC. There are settings you can do to make it throttle itself, but I like to just put it on the server and have the server run CrashPlan, and I don't care how hard the server works. Let it do its thing.
Right.
It can be running at 100% for all I care. And what happens is when I bring those photos off the card, send them to my server. The server sees running CrashPlan, sees that almost immediately, and starts backing it up. So there's times when it's not even done taking the photos off the card, when my server is already backing stuff up to the cloud.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hopefully I'm not losing anybody. So
nope.
Don't be intimidated by the word server. All it is another computer. Linux, Mac, PC, doesn't matter. And actually, CrashPlan will run on all three of those different computers: Mac, PC, and Linux. And I'm sure some of the other softwares will too, like Backblaze or Carbonite or some of those things. All right. So that gets the original copy over to my server. So now I have my original on my PC, my local backup on my server, and my offsite that's gone through CrashPlan, right?
Right.
Okay. The next thing is now what happens when I'm editing photos and I'm changing things. I've gone into Photoshop. Maybe I've done an HDR or done some kind of photo merge, and those original photos have changed. They're not original yet. And maybe I have other documents too. Maybe I've created, my tax return or something like that. I've created these other documents. Those are all of course, those documents, are stored on the server. But those photo edits are not. I want them here because I want to work on them as fast as possible. I want that local hard drive speed versus the network speed.
Right. Makes sense.
So
that was the problem I had with Lightroom at one point. I was storing my photos on my server, my Windows Home server, and accessing the photos was always so slow. So finally, I made the decision to change it. Now I store all my photos on my main drive. I have a backup drive for that, plus it backs up to the server, and then I have the copy of my photos offsite.
Yep, very good. Okay, I'm going to try and bring something up here, but first, before I do that, the photos you have on your local computer, and then the process of getting them over to your server can be complicated because you don't want to have to worry about, let's say you've changed over the course of editing 1,500 photos. Which ones do I need to move over there? Which ones don't I need to move? I've edited this thing 5 or 6 times. Do I have the most recent one over there? You need some kind of automated way. And fortunately, there's a free way to do this, both on a Mac and a PC. Macs, I don't have a Mac. I can't demo this, but Macs have a process called Time Machine,
right?
Where you can use Time Machine to take stuff off your local PC and move it over to your server. And the server, again, can just be in the next room. But using Time Machine to keep those files synced between you and your server so that any updates you make here are over on your server. And remember, once you get it on the server, CrashPlan's uploading it to the cloud.
Right.
Okay. For us PC users, there's a free software called SyncToy. And go over to it. SYNCTOY, SyncToy. You download that. You install it on the server again, or you can put it on the PC, but it's better to put it on the server. And then you tell it, I want you to take everything that's in OneDrive on my PC and sync it over to a drive on my server.
Right.
And all this documentation is on the SyncToy thing. It's really easy to use. You just go there, download it. It works on all different versions of Windows. And then it also will show you how to automate that setting. So I have it like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It does the check. Has anything changed on Mike's PC? Yes, it has. Copy it over to the server. And that stuff happens automatically every night. All right, so that's how you get it from your PC to the server. Everything, any questions yet?
Well, I don't do it that way. I mean, I use Windows Home Server, so everything backs up for me automatically through the home server software.
I do that also, but not for the photos because I have so many photos and I want to individually sync those. And I don't take the Windows Home Server, which is doing a bare metal backup. I don't upload that to the cloud.
All right, so you're just pointing to your OneDrive that has all your photos to use SyncToy. That probably wouldn't be the worst idea. I could probably stick another drive in my server just for that.
All right, so what we're going to attempt here is hopefully we don't create a wormhole. But I am now logged a remote desktop into my server. I'm trying to make CrashPlan full screen. And you see I've paused this. So CrashPlan will suck up every bit of my upload.
Right. Whatever you have available, it'll use.
If I'm not careful. So what I'm having to do is pause it But you can see it has 3 files, podcast files. I never copied them over there. They're stored here locally. It's just SyncToys brought them over there. So, but now what I'm doing is I am taking those files and I'm backing them up to the cloud. But you don't have to back them up to the cloud. Let's say you were Alicia lives and she says she has data caps.
In the sticks.
You have data caps, or your upload is really slow. So what do? It does get more complicated, but there is a way to handle this. If you have data caps or really slow upload, something like that, what you're going to have to do is back it up locally, another copy, and then physically take it off site. And I was thinking about this. I think the best way to do it is have 2 sets and rotate them.
That's what I do.
When you have one home and backing it up, you have the other one off site. So what you can do in CrashPlan is, you see right now I'm in the destinations menu choice under in CrashPlan. That's saying, where do you want to send this? I can create another one that is called folders, select a folder, and then I'm not going to do this because I don't know what it'll do, but select a folder somewhere here on my computer. And that could be, it has to be local. It can't do this across the network. So you need to physically attach it. So I'll go over a couple of things you can use to do that in just a second. But you have physically attached storage through USB or Thunderbolt or Firewire or something like that. And you're going to use that as your backup location for a folder instead of going to CrashPlan. And then when you do that, it will treat that just like it's backing up. Just like it's doing to the cloud. It doesn't care. Cloud, local. I'm going to back up to that thing. So there you go. So there's a lot more I can go into with CrashPlan, but that's the basics of it right now. Let's go. How did I do this? I had my thing full screen. All right. We don't want to go there. All right.
No. We don't talk about him.
No. So
not on our show.
All right. So now you got your files over to the server. You got CrashPlan running on the server. All right, Mike, where am I going to take these files and send them to? Okay. Because I can't send it to the cloud because I have a data cap. I'm going to give you 2 choices. There's hundreds of choices. I'm going to give you 2 choices. And if one of our friends, our tech friends, are listening, Tim, and why didn't you mention this or why didn't you mention that? That list is long of why didn't I mention this? So I didn't mention something because there's too many choices, and I'm going to try and narrow this down to 2. And one of them is I use all the time, and that's the Mediasonic enclosure. It's
you've mentioned that before.
It's a 4-drive enclosure. All it does is, let's see if they have a picture of it here. Yeah, there you go. So all it does is hold the 4 drives. You put the 4 drives in there. You want to buy all 4, stick it in there. And you connect it to your PC either through our Mac, either through USB or Firewire. I do USB 3.0, and that's how it's connected. So what will happen is when you connect it, you start backing up with CrashPlan, and then let's say, all right, I'm done. I've caught up. I want to take it off site. You unplug it. You take it off site. Then CrashPlan sees, hey, I got to change in a file. I want to back it up. But it doesn't see the storage. So it's going to sit there and say, I don't see it. And then the day you bring it back in and plug it back in, it goes, oh, there it is. And boom, it starts backing it up again. So you can do it that way.
Now, all the drives, are they the same size? Because is this in RAID or is this just drive pooling?
They have both. I recommend getting the RAID. That's what this one is. Okay. This is the Pro RAID. I recommend getting the RAID version, run it in RAID 5. And I will explain at the bonus point section what RAID is and what RAID 5 is. But I would recommend getting 4 drives of the same exact make and model and storage, everything about them the same, all at the same time. And actually, you might want to get a 5th and just stick it on top of there because
for when one dies, you're
right. There are some downsides to RAID. But you stick those drives in there. I bought 4 4-terabyte drives and stuck them in there. With a RAID 5, and I'm getting a little technical here, and this is meant for the bonus points, but with RAID 5, just realize that you lose one of the drives for data protection. So really, while you're putting 4 drives in there, you only have 3 drives worth of storage, right? That makes sense. And now, if you wanted to have 2 of these, where you have one at home while you're doing one offsite and you're rotating them through like that, you know, when you bring one in to back it up, you take the other one off. In CrashPlan, where I showed you to add a folder and to back it up to that folder, you just add a second folder and say back it up to this one, and that is that second hard drive enclosure. And now it'll see when one's missing, when one's there, and it'll keep backing them up to both of those.
And this accepts up to a 6 terabyte drive.
Right.
That's pretty, that's a lot.
So I have one of them connected to the PC here. I have 2 of them connected to my server back in the room next to me. And then I have another one connected to another server back there. So I'm constantly running 1, 2.
So you have
3,
16
4
drives.
I have 4 of them that I run 24/7, and 2 of them have been running for years, and they've run just fine. I would recommend in any of these NAS solutions that you buy the NAS quality hard drives. They're just slightly more expensive. Do not buy the green drives or the slower spinning drives. Those drives will die. Buy Western Digital Reds, or I think they're Hitachi NAS drives. Buy one of those 2. Don't buy Seagate, and don't buy.
I gave up on Seagate a long time ago.
And don't buy the green drives. And I would say that's the same case for a drive you're putting in your computer. I only put the Reds or the Hitachi NAS drives in my computer also, even though it's not in a NAS.
Well, I'm still running a lot of green drives in my server, but as I replace them, and sadly, I think I have probably 4 or 5 drives that I still haven't even used. But as I replace them, I'm getting red drives now.
Okay.
They're just designed to be run 24/7,
right,
which the green drives weren't.
Now, there is a downside to this box. And it's the RAID. RAID is a little more complicated. I'll go into that later. But also, once you put those drives in there, let's say you go, Mike, I can't afford 4 terabyte drives, and then you're telling me I need a 5th one. I'm going to get 4 2 terabyte drives, or maybe 4 1 terabyte drives. Once you stick those in there, you can't then say, I want to expand my storage by taking one of those drives out and sticking a 4 terabyte drive in there.
Right.
You're now stuck with that as your storage. Whatever you initially put in there, that is your storage. The enclosure is fairly cheap at $190. That sounds like a lot of money, but compared to other solutions that you'll see in just a second, that's fairly cheap. The $190 that you see in there is without a single hard drive.
Right, and I'm looking up the 4 terabyte Reds right now are $154.
Yep, I just bought one. I didn't buy the Red. I bought the Hitachi NAS.
Okay. Probably about the same price.
Right. All right. So now you have that. You know your limitations here. So buy as much as you can in the front end. The other solution I'm going to tell you, and there's tons of them. I'll just mention one of them. Synology is a solution you can look at. It's expensive, but it's pretty good. The other one you can look at is Drobo, and you've heard this probably before. There's a lot of photographers who use Drobo. It again can connect to your PC or your Mac through. They probably have a Thunderbolt version. They have a USB version. They even have a network attached version. If you use that, though, remember you can't run CrashPlan on this thing, or Carbonite or Backblaze. You can't run any of those, so that it won't have any way of helping you back up offsite. But it could be a solution there. Drobo does have the advantage of allowing you to add hard drives later on and add additional storage. So you could
mix and match the sizes as well.
Mix and match the sizes. You could take 1 terabyte drive out, stick a 4 terabyte in there, and you can do that. But I'm going to try and find a comparable.
They're expensive, though, I think.
Yeah.
Do they have a 4 bay, or they only have 5 bays, I think?
That's what I'm trying to do, is find one that's got the right size.
That one up top is 4 bays.
This one here?
Yeah, it's only got 4 lights on it, so.
Yeah, 4 lights. So how do we see the shop? We'll go to shop. And we'll go to Amazon. Drobo USB 4, 289. That's actually not too bad.
Yeah,
for a
that's not
Drobo.
bad. They used to be like 700 is the number I kind of remember on
So
them.
it's going to be about $100 more. It is a USB 3.0 4-bay enclosure. If you want to go to the 5-bay, here's where they've stepped it up. If you want to go to the 5-bay Thunderbolt
doubled in price.
USB, it's $776.
Right.
Or if you want network attached storage, it's $500. But if you're getting a comparable device to that Mediasonic, it's $289. So about $100 more, again, without the drives. So I would take a look at both of those as potential options. The Mediasonic device or the Drobo. The Drobo uses their own proprietary format of RAID, so it does give you some protection there, but it allows you to change your amount of storage later on. Right? What have I missed?
I was just reading about the Drobo because I remember Jim was always talking about it and was very high on it. But I think the thing that always kept me away from it was the price.
Yeah, and now I'm looking at $289 is not bad.
Yeah, that's. Now I know they had been bought out because his contact disappeared and everything, and really haven't heard a lot from that. I have not seen or read anything about Drobo until you mentioned it today in a while.
Yeah, and like I said, my Mediasonics have run rock solid for a long time.
That's all you can. That's all you can ask for.
It's hard for me to go that way, but at $289, that's for a 4-drive. That is pretty reasonable.
Mike, you don't need it.
No, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy it. I'm good with what I'm doing. So there you go. If you don't have the bandwidth or have data caps, the solution is to use something like a Drobo or a Mediasonic. Get 2 sets of them. Now, again, you're going to spend a little more money because you're going to have 2 sets of hard drives, enclosures, and then rotate them in and out. And you actually, if you're using something like a Mac Mini or a laptop or an OPC, you may not have enough internal storage in that device, and
right.
you're going to need something like a Drobo or a Mediasonic attached to that thing as the permanent storage for all these files. So you may actually need 3 of these. You can, of course, build into them and get there eventually. You don't have to do it day one, but it's something that you should be working toward. There's, it does cost a little bit of money to do all this stuff, so you may want to build up to it. But again, these are your images. You spent money on a camera, you spent money on the lenses, you spent money on your time and your effort making them. If you're not backing them up, they're going to be lost.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And, I'm often asked, well, why do I need an offsite backup if I have a local backup? The local backup is the one where, oops, I deleted this. Let me go get it again.
Or the drive crashed and you want to replace the whole drive.
The drive fails. I've got, you've seen me multiple times showing you hard drives. Frickin' here's our Western Digital Black, which is supposed to be really good. It's failed. Right. And I lost, everything that's on here is dead, but I have a backup, so I got it. So the local backup is for restoring those things, oops, I deleted something. Oh my God, the whole hard drive just crashed. Those type of things. Your offsite backup is for everything else. You hope you will never, ever have to use that offsite backup because it means your house burned down, a tornado hit the house, a flood hit the house, your plumbing burst and went all into your server, or, the thing that you don't hear about that happens even more than all those things is somebody broke into your house and stole your equipment.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody steals your PCs or tornado blows apart your house or a flood or a fire, that local backup's not doing you any good. And, while you may think, as long as I got out safely, I'm all good, that's true. But then later when you start to rebuild, you're going to wish you had those things.
Absolutely.
And that offsite backup could be at work, could be at your, your family member's house. Could be something like that. I wouldn't store it in your car.
No, because that's probably in your garage, which is attached to your house that got blown away by the tornado.
And it's going to get too hot.
Right, yes.
I also would not use CDs or DVDs or anything like that.
No.
I have had many, many times back before hard drives got cheaper, and I was using DVDs as my backup for all my photos. I've had many, many of them fail. That you go to restore the image and it started to get corrupt. The ones we buy will start to deteriorate after a certain amount of time, depending on how you
And
store them.
sometimes a lot quicker than you would think.
A lot quicker than you think, yes.
And then you go to find that picture, and lo and behold, that's dead. So I actually shouldn't say not to use it, but use it in conjunction with something else.
Yeah. And Alicia
And then,
says,
and then as time changes, you need to update too. Because think about years ago, you had things on a 3.5-inch floppy or a zip drive, or gosh forbid, a 5 1/4-inch floppy. You wouldn't even know how to get that uploaded anymore. You could not access it. And you look at how CDs are disappearing from computers now. A lot of new computers don't have it, so that's not going to be a way of using it in the future. So you got to make sure you hold on to that hardware and make sure it can work with your new hardware. And if it doesn't, you need to change the media moving forward.
yeah. Hard drives will be with us for a while, but you're right on CDs. I even ran into the problem, Tim, where the burner I used to burn the CD or DVD had died, and I went to read it in another burner, and for whatever reason, that other burner wouldn't read what the other guy wrote.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, so I just, all that stuff was lost. Hard drives will be with us for a good while, and there's backup solutions, there's online backup solutions and that kind of stuff. CrashPlan also does something where it's called data dedupe, and that is where it makes an attempt, and I guess it does an okay job with it, that if it sees the same exact data, it tries to only take up space once for that. So it helps you cut down on the space and helps a little bit. And I think it does that even when you're backing up to a local. You could, if you, let's say bandwidth and your data caps is not an issue for you. Both of those are good. I'm good, Mike. I got fiber. Tim, you have fiber.
Woohoo!
You're good. But you just, for other reasons, say, I don't want to pay CrashPlan any more than I have to. So you go, but I got a friend that lives in Michigan or, across the town, and he or she has good connection. I'm going to hook up to their computer, and we're going to back up to each other. You can do that with CrashPlan too and not pay a dime.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a spare computer. What I should do is I should take it, stick it in my father-in-law's house so that I can have it just running there and back up to his house.
Absolutely.
It's what I should really do.
Yep. You could do that. If you don't have data caps, then there's no reason not to be using the automated online backup, either to CrashPlan or to somebody else's house running CrashPlan. Very good.
That's really what I should do.
All right, we're ready for the bonus What is RAID section?
Isn't that what fraternity houses do to sorority houses? That's the wrong raid.
No panties in this show, Tim. This is the bonus section. This is where if anybody else is watching, they're probably turning us off now. But we're going to talk a little about, or Alicia probably already knows this stuff, and maybe so does Gary. We're going to talk in very basic terms, what is RAID?
Redundant array of inexpensive drives. Okay.
I don't even know if I remember what the acronym stood for.
Yeah.
But basically it's taken more than one drive and combining them into something. So there's various types of RAID. There's RAIDs where you're doing it for speed, where you take two of them and you write half the file to one drive, half the file to the other drive, and then it's about twice as fast in the reads and the writes. Then there's one where you take an exact copy and put it on two drives. There's that. But what I want to talk about right now is RAID 5.
Right, that's what I use.
And those type of things. RAID 5 requires a minimum of 3 drives, and I would not go much. I don't even know if I'd go up to 8. You can get an enclosure with 8, but I get a little worried with 8 drives in a RAID 5. That's a little much. Somewhere less than that. What RAID 5 does is it almost seems like magic. And how somebody thought of this, it seems like magic, but then if you break it down into simpler terms, it seems like, oh, that's easy.
Right, so, makes sense.
So let's take the case of a 3-drive RAID 5 array. All right? What that is doing is in the 3 drives, it writes the file, part to one drive, part to the other drive. All right? So let's just say half of the file is written to drive 1, half the drive is written to drive 2. They go, well, what happened to drive 3? Drive 3 in this case is what's called the parity drive. It's a drive that's I'm sorry, I've said that wrong, didn't I? RAID 5 doesn't use an individual drive for parity. It has striped parity.
Yeah, I know how it works, but I know I couldn't explain it.
So I explained that wrong, but let's pretend like I didn't say that. In RAID 5, it writes the data across the drives. Okay. And it also takes up space with the parity. Now, what is the parity? And basically that space of the parity takes up the equivalent of a full drive. So you end up with a 3-drive array for RAID 5, you end up with space for only 2 drives. If you look at a hard drive, and I've showed you this one before. This is your normal hard drive, right?
Yes.
Are you doing Wikipedia and
No, I was actually looking at chat because I didn't read it before.
Okay. This is your normal hard drive. Inside of this thing is some of these. They look like little
platters.
They look like little CDs.
Yes, I love ripping them apart.
They are crazy reflective if you don't have your fingerprints all over them. But there's multiples of these in there, and this is what your data is written on. There's a little record player arm that goes back and forth and reads this stuff on this thing,
which is amazing technology when you really think about it.
Yeah, and it does it multiple times. If you think about this record as a photo, and each of the smallest pieces of information on here is a pixel. That's not what it's called, but let's just assume it's called a pixel. And you've got 3 hard drives, okay? If you say this is pixel number 1, this is pixel number 2, and so on, you work your way around, all right? And it's the same on all 3. The spot on the drive for pixel 1 is the same spot on all 3 hard drives. So what the parity is doing, what the stripe parity is doing in a RAID 5 is it says, I know what the information is in pixel number 1. So remember back in the day, you might have heard about this, that it's all ones and zeros.
Mm-hmm.
It's all, computer programming is all ones and zeros. It still is today. Data is ones and zeros.
Right.
It's either on or it's off. It's all boils down to ones and zeros. So if you know you have 3 drives and you have in pixel 1 either a 1 or a 0 on all 3 of those drives, let's say in all 3 drives, pixel 1 is a 1. 1, 2, 3, right?
I'm sorry, I was reading again. Okay.
So it on the where it's keeping track of the parity, it says pixel 1 is a 3.
Okay.
Because it's 1, 1, 1. And then all of a sudden drive 2 is lost. Well, I know if I see drive 3 and drive 1 is a 1, and I know the total is a 3, then obviously what's missing is a 1.
What's missing is a 1.
And let's say it's a 1. Let's do that again. Pixel 2 is on drive 1 a 0, on drive 2 a 0, and on drive 3 a 1. So that adds up to a 1.
Correct.
And I lost drive 2, remember?
Correct.
That drive 1 is a 0, drive 3 is a 1. I have to be missing a 0. And so it does that on a pixel by pixel or a sector by sector or bit by bit, whatever you want to say. It does that math and says, here's what every single one of those is. When you give me another hard drive to replace that one that's bad, I'll fill it in with all these numbers. Bam, all your data is back.
Correct. You can lose one drive at any given time, but you got to get another one in there fast, because if that Gary's brain just blew up. If you lose another drive, you lose everything.
Just think about this. If you write down on a sheet of paper a 1, a 1, and a 1, and then it says equal 3. Okay? 1, 1, 1 equals 3. Right. And then erase one of the ones. You still have...
It's a little bit of algebra there.
You still have...
Solve for X.
You still have 2 of them, a 1 and a 1, and you have the answer, 3. So the missing 1 has to be a 1. And you can think about that. If the combinations are either a 0 or a 1, then there's not a whole lot of permutation and combination. It's got to, it's got to be a 0, 1. And like you said, Tim, in a RAID 5, you can lose one drive. No matter if you have 3 drives, 5 drives, 8 drives, you can lose one drive, and the parity can bring it all back together.
Right. But that's why I'm looking to probably move to RAID 6,
Yep.
where you have the 2 parity drives where you can lose 2 drives and you're fine. And you know, one thing I wanted to disagree with you earlier. You
Okay.
said you had that Mediasonic enclosure and you bought 4 drives, the same type, same model, everything. You're almost better off buying them staggered like a month apart, because if one group of drives is bad, there's likely a couple in that group that are going to go bad. So you might lose more than one at a time, or at least when one goes, the other one's probably not far behind.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, but you know, when you're building it, you know,
Yeah, you want to build it right then and there.
if you're like me, you don't have the
Yes.
patience to wait.
No, you ordered it and you're building it the day it arrives at the door.
So before we move to RAID 6, I gave you that lecture on RAID 5 to say, if you write this down on a piece of paper, I know, Gary, some people are saying, oh, this is so complicated. I'm sure it is, but write down on a sheet of paper, 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, and erase one of the ones. 0 + 0 + 1 = 1, and erase one of the zeros, or erase the 1. And you can always replace that missing 1. Right. You can take this up to 5. Do it with 5 letters. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. Erase one of the ones. You can always replace it.
Correct.
That's what RAID 5 is doing. Erase 2 of them, and you
can't figure.
You
don't
do
know
it.
what was on one drive. Right. You don't know if the one drive had a 0 or 1, or you look like something happened.
Something did happen. So hold on one second.
So the look of terror.
This is the first time this has happened. What is going on? So we have no more space left on the hard drive to record. I have an SSD that is, I guess, small. So this is going to be a test for Mike. Can I blend these together later on? Say something?
Say something. Yep, I'm here.
All right, so we're recording again, hopefully. That was interesting. Yeah. All right, let's add that to the checklist. So if you lose 2 drives in a RAID 5 enclosure, everything is lost.
Correct.
That's why I'm saying that maybe have that spare drive ready, so whenever one dies, you don't have to wait and buy one, and maybe you don't notice it dies right away, and by the time you get the second one in there, and by the time you get the replacement in there, another one dies, everything's gone. Not just the stuff on those 1 or 2 drives, everything's gone.
Everything is gone. You can't replace it.
So with a RAID 5, you're protected from 1 drive loss, regardless of how many drives you have in there. Minimum of 3 for RAID 5. I don't know if there's a theoretical maximum.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a max, but
the more you put in there, the more likelihood something's going to die, the more likelihood 2 of them's going to die, then everything's lost. Tim, you brought RAID 6. RAID 6, similar to RAID 5, except it can suffer 2 drive losses.
correct.
All right.
And you got to remember, even though you have the drive loss, when you stick another drive in, you got to wait for it to rebuild. Now, as you're waiting for it to rebuild, that's the scary time.
That's the critical time, yep. All right, well, that is my bonus section on RAID. And I don't know if we lost anybody there or not, but
Well, we know Gary went poof.
but that's it. It's not as magical as you think, especially if you write that down on paper and you look at it and go, all right, I can understand that.
Well, I actually like that analogy. I mean, I've seen it on in print and I've read about it, but I know I could not have explained it. Well, I know it works. Yeah. I know it works. That's good enough for me.
It works. It works really well, but it is scary when you lose a drive.
Yes.
All right. Anything else, Tim?
No, I just noticed that my computer has not backed up in about 2 weeks. So I'm trying to figure that one out.
All right. So hopefully we've helped somebody here. I've always wanted to write an article to go through and talk about backing up. And I'm still going to do that at some point. I'm going to write an article to lay this stuff out. Some people like to watch it in video. Some people like to see it written out. It's something, we've talked about in the show. We might have even done a full show on this before. And it's still shocking to me when we hear about fellow photographers who have lost all their images or have lost the images from a wedding or done something like that in this day and age are not backing up. And I hate to hit them while they're down, but the first thing you want to say to them is,
why?
Yes. Well, they say, my drive just crashed, please help. And my first thought is, no problem, restore
Pull
from
out
your
the
backup.
backup.
And
Or
you
get the offsite backup.
you know why they're coming in a panic is because they don't have that.
Right.
And I think sometimes it's because of several reasons. One is maybe you spend every bit of money you've got on the equipment you have, and you're not buying it on these things that are not very sexy, that are kind of out of sight, out of mind, that you really feel like I'm not getting any value from. It's almost like insurance.
Right.
Why do I have to spend this money? Because you hope you never have to use it.
Right.
And if I'm never going to have to use it, why do I want to spend it? But it is like insurance, and that'll save your bacon someday. But I think a lot of people put it off of that. The other thing is maybe there's too many choices. You know, if you go looking for immediate drive enclosures, I just showed you 2. There are thousands of them. It's almost like an overabundance, and everybody's situation is slightly different. Tim, you got great bandwidth up and down. Do you have any data caps?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you are in a great situation.
Right.
I have no data caps, but I only have 5 meg up. I use.
I'm 80 down, 80 up.
Yeah, I hate you. So
yeah, but you know what? When let's see, if I go to download a large file from Microsoft or something, when it used to have the TechNet subscription, it still took forever to download it because their site was slow. Right. Doesn't matter how fast mine was.
Yeah, if you tried to back up the crash plan, I'm not sure you get all 80.
Yeah,
because they're not necessarily throttling you, but if everybody backing up to them, they get saturated. It's beyond I can saturate my 5 up with crash plan, so it's bigger than 5. But I don't know if it goes to 80. And, the crash plan says they're unlimited. I've got I'll check tonight, almost 8 terabyte uploaded to them. So if their unlimited is actually limited somewhere, I haven't hit it yet.
Right. That's not bad.
Yeah.
You might be an outlier, and I would imagine the vast majority of people do not upload 8 terabytes.
I would think so too. You shouldn't be uploading everything
Programs.
you got, programs, that kind of stuff. Upload your most important stuff and do it that way. But whatever you do, find some backup solution that works for you.
Correct. That's the key.
Okay. All right. And I guess with that, we'll say good night. Till next week, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.